Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Director Watch, an AwardsWatch podcast that attempts to get inside the mind of cinema's greatest auteurs, explore what drives them, and maybe we go on a few unrelated tangents along the way. I'm Ryan McQuade, the executive editor here at AwardsWatch, and joining me as always is my ride or die on a sandworm co-host, Jay Ledbetter.
I can't believe it. We're talking about the highest rated film on IMDb in history.
Shawshank Redemption?
No, it's been supplanted.
No.
By Dune Part 2, the event film of 2024. We're doing it. And Ryan, I think we're going to piss people off.
The event film of 2024, 2 months in.
I mean,
the rest of the year doesn't matter.
Tell me I'm wrong, though. I mean,
we're talking about Madam Web.
Yeah, I was going to say the Beekeeper's right there, buddy. You did the review and everything for it.
Madam Web.
Oh man,
can't believe I missed it.
I'll fill you in.
We're talking about Dune 2. This is gonna be a good one, bud.
Dune 2.
This is what we promised. We promised in the Denis Villeneuve series that we come back and we do a little.
That's the whole reason we did it.
Dune 2,
when it was supposed to come out at first.
And then because of the strike, they said no, thank you to October, and they said we'll move it to March because that makes sense. Well, maybe we can talk about that a little bit.
So not only did they set back the film industry, they set back our podcast.
Yeah. And that's, I think, more offensive.
It's unforgivable.
Yeah. Fuck you, Zaslav, you piece of shit.
Well, Zaslav, he's got good intentions.
I'm sure you would be the one to defend him. You know what I mean? Jay, we're not alone on this.
No.
On this desert planet. No, we need somebody else to help us
to bring
collect the spice. Yeah. And that is our one of our favorite guests, probably our favorite guest. Not to say anything bad about the other guests, but she's just been here for some really great conversations, all the way from Acon City. It's our associate editor, Sophia Ciminello.
Hi guys, thank you so much for having me back on. I'm excited to talk about Dune Part 2. It's funny that I'm back on. I know I was maybe your harshest guest on Denis Villeneuve, even though I came on for Blade Runner 2049, which is my favorite of his movies still after this one. Yeah. But yeah, I think there's just been so much hype around this movie, and I've been highly anticipating it too, because I think the first one is half of a movie, and I was ready to see how it finished up.
Well, let's set the stage. Let's travel back to a mere 4 months ago, where Jay and I sat down and we released our episode for Dune Part 1. Sort of a little bit of a recap, because Lord knows Dune Part 2 didn't really recap that film. But anyway, we came out pretty.
What did you want them to do? A previously on before?
Yeah,
the movie?
Pretty much this feels like TV episodes. If the way that Denis Villeneuve is doing it, if you want to go through.
You're the guy who was like, Dune 1 is totally its own movie, and Jay, you're an idiot for saying it's half a movie.
Correct.
And here we stand.
Correct.
Oh.
I was going to be a little bit nicer to myself than that, but yes, no, I'm firmly in the camp that Dune 1 was a really good movie. And I know that both my co-host Jay Ledbetter here and
I like it.
I know you like it. I know. I think it's great. I really and I also have thought about it since that conversation. And I do realize something, that I think I give that movie a little bit more of a pass because it was one of the first blockbusters that we saw out of the pandemic, and really one of the first big original spectacles that we saw out of the pandemic, for sure. And I know Sophia is mixed on it from our previous conversations, and we'll get to that here in a second. But overall, we, like Sophia said, we're very much looking forward to Dune Part 2 because
for sure.
I mean, it's got a stacked cast. You know what I mean? So before I get into anybody, I'm just going to read this off. That the movie is directed by Denis Villeneuve, and unfortunately, it's written by Denis Villeneuve. And it stars Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, our most important person on the planet, Rebecca Ferguson, Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin, Austin Butler, Florence Pugh, Dave Bautista, Christopher Walken, Lea Seydoux, Charlotte Rampling, and so many more. So, Stellan Skarsgård. I almost forgot about Stellan Skarsgård. So does the film. The movie, of course, is as follows. Paul Atreides unites with Chani and the Fremen while seeking revenge against the conspirators who destroyed his family. That's Dune Part 2. Sophia, not a fan of the first one. I know that.
I want to just lay this out here before we get started.
Yeah, I'm happy
We
to.
like this movie less than other people, but let's not like bury this thing because it has been received
like
so
it.
well. Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Ryan was just coming in hot.
We gotta, hey, it's not no, but okay, if we're gonna do that.
Look, Ryan, you're doing it for the content. And
if we're gonna do that, do that, Jay, let's flip it on the other way, because you did start off by saying that this is now the highest rated film on IMDb in its history, which is also an arbitrary system of ratings to begin with on that site.
And it's also with only the people who really have gone out of their way to watch it.
Yeah, we've only had like fan screenings at the moment. And
I say that in jest.
But that being said, also, the hyperbole has probably never been as high for a movie in recent memory. Not even Barbenheimer got to this kind of level of hyperbole. We're talking about comparing Dune Part 2.
The last one was
Dune Part 2.
It was Dune Part 1.
You think so?
I think
yeah.
I think
because Dune Part 2 has been compared to the movies like Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers,
Lawrence of Arabia.
The
Good Lord.
Godfather.
Empire Strikes Back.
Oh my God.
So we have. All
right, Ryan. You know what? Fire away.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jay. I was just providing the context necessary for what is going to be, I think, a pretty balanced review, because I am not going to kiss the altar, give a 10 out of 10 score to this movie. I am going to give it the fair and balanced review that I gave it on the website, and it's what it deserved. But before I get into my thoughts on it, I have to get y'all's thoughts on it. And Sophia is our guest, and I was setting up that she was not a big fan of the first one. I believe she rewatched it recently, though, doing the homework like a great guest does, and also to prepare herself for the new one. So, but I want to actually hear in full thoughts and details, what about the first part doesn't work for you, Sophia, because you weren't on that episode with us. You've also are a big admirer and reader of the book, the original book by Frank Herbert. And then your thoughts on Dune Part 2.
Yeah, I think so. Reading Frank Herbert's Dune really is a labor of love. It is an intense process. It's a dense, long book. And I was determined to finish it before the first movie came out. And because I had put so much into reading the book, I was really excited for the movie. And the main reason why I was excited was because, one, it's really weird. The rules of the world are strange. The characters are bizarre. And it has these really complex themes of religious fanaticism and politics in this, like, dark and shadowy world that comes up mostly in the second half. So I'm excited to talk about that. But I think that the first movie, which I'm not a fan of, and it was very hard because when it came out, most people kept telling me, like, this is the best movie I've ever seen. This is a new sci-fi classic. And I think it's a really austere and somewhat bare film. And I feel like people love the worlds that Denis Villeneuve builds, but they just don't feel like anything to me. And the film itself doesn't allow for any kind of dramatic development or true character perspective, which, when you have these fascinating characters, absolutely does a disservice to the book, and it's a disservice to these actors. You have a stacked cast, and they can't perform to the level that you expect or want them to because of the writing, and it's just so thin. And I think that the lack of emotionality that we find in many of Villeneuve's films, I think with the exception really of Arrival and Blade Runner 2049, if a character dies, I should have a reaction. Why do I feel absolutely nothing when a character dies in the first movie? And I think he was overwhelmed a bit in the setup with the world building, that he totally took off the fun edge to Dune and made it just this very aesthetically muted world, because that's what he was caught up in. And that just lost me. That's not what I wanted from this. And then, we get into the idea of whether or not this is a full movie. I love a trilogy. I love a series. The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2, two of my favorite movies ever made. This is not a full movie. It is half of a movie. It's also not just like there's a difference between a movie with a cliffhanger and half of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And this is half of a movie. Why is the climax of the film when he fights a person we're meeting at the very end? It's like Fremen number 6. That's how you feel when you get there. It's like,
That's how he's credited.
Why are we here, right? And it also, I think it ends at the wrong time in the book. I took umbrage with that. Why are we ending there? I think I felt nothing. It builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and then you get to a complete it falls flat at the end. And that's a really difficult way to structure your movie if you want people to feel something from it as a film itself. And the idea of this is a part 1 and we're getting part 2 later, that's not good enough for me. Other movies have multiple installments and they don't do this and they don't fall into this trap. Lord of the Rings, so much better. I think you have a full story.
Well, wait a minute. Well, if I can cut you off.
Sure.
In between the time of you seeing the Dune Part 1 for the first time and seeing this new film and doing this rewatch and everything, there is something that you have done that Jay Ledbetter has yet to do.
Yeah.
So Jay, you cannot comment on this, but this is something I've been wanting Jay to do for a long, long time.
Rewatch Lord of the Rings.
Thank you very much. So Sophia,
I will say that even sight unseen, I think those movies, despite the fact that they are very much leading into the next one, they do feel like whole pieces of art in and of themselves.
They do.
Yeah.
Which is my biggest complaint with Dune 1. It's just like, that's where you leave us. I mean, one of the great examples of this, obviously, is Empire Strikes Back, which very much is like, and there's more to come. But that movie has this huge revelation at the end of the film where you are like, okay, everything has changed, but the metamorphosis from the beginning to the end is satisfying in and of itself. And I even thought another film that came out I guess it was last year, 2023, Across the Spider-Verse, I thought was a similar experience where it does very much end on this cliffhanger, but I found it to be a very insulated, satisfying in that way as
it wraps up the threads that it establishes in that film.
And then it's like,
and then now the grander story that we are going to finish is in part 3 based off these consequences.
Maybe
from this
nitpick
movie.
The last like 15 minutes of Spider-Verse, but
it's still a really good.
It's way more satisfying than Dune 1.
I like that a lot. And I think going to Lord of the Rings, so I watched them week to week in theaters, which was a really good way to do it because I was able to kind of like experience them in the way that you're supposed to.
Like all over again.
Yeah, had such a greater appreciation for them.
Extended.
Yeah.
I've never seen the extended.
Oh, Jay, you would love them. They're so good. They had so much.
But they're just fun, and that's the thing. And they're very focused on the world, but they're also so focused on the characters and their development. Like you get very attached to certain characters and certain relationships, and that's just something that's missing for me from the filmmaking here that just doesn't make it fun.
Yeah.
I'm surprised when I find like people who think this movie is a fun watch. Like that's just not. I find it like, and you guys know, I love chilly movies. I love slow movies where nothing happens. Like on paper,
like a moody boy. You like a moody little.
I love a moody guy. This should be something that works for me completely. But it just doesn't have the verve that I need from a story, like a story at this scale too. And I understand that those large scale films can sometimes feel like they're missing that
empty.
They can feel empty. But another movie I've seen a handful of times that people are comparing the second part to, like Lawrence of Arabia. I mean, that has so much
that is
that's criminal
complication, right?
Put him in jail. Put him in
what's
fucking
going
jail.
on, right? But anyway, I think
that movie, I'm sorry, it literally is 2 parts. There's an intermission. We get the second part. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Okay,
like,
so now that we've covered Dune 1, should we move on to Dune 2?
Yes. So I was very excited to move into Dune 2 because for me, like, that's where a lot of the meat is, because in part 1, how they introduced Chani through these visions, and he gives her that intro voiceover in the same way. It's interesting that he uses 2 female character voiceovers to open both of these movies and then gives them the short shaft as
he's one of our great writers of female characters.
Yeah. I just want on the record that, like, everybody got mad at Nolan, and it's like Denis Villeneuve said, I will firmly take the mantle from you there.
The women here are far better than Nolan's women. But not because of Villeneuve, it's because of Herbert. Like, they're characters that were already created.
Yeah, but okay.
They're characters that were already created.
Yeah, that's got nothing to so.
But it's interesting because there's a detail that happens in the book, a character death, that doesn't happen here, that I think Nolan would have added because he loves the dead wife,
Hell yeah.
throughout his earlier films. But anyway, so I do find I'll start here. Part 2, I liked. I felt it was far superior actually to part 1 for me, because I got very sucked into those themes that I was so excited as a fan of the book to pick back up on. Like, I think was thrilled to be back there. And I think that even though it feels very overstuffed and gets a bit lost in the middle, we can get into all of that. I was really impressed by how it looked. I felt like very swept away in that, which I think is part of the Villeneuve magic. That's why people really love him.
He's a great CEO.
Yes. And I did feel like here, an interesting thing that I didn't see in part 1 was that the performers, specifically Austin Butler and Lea Seydoux in her 10 minutes, understood the strangeness of the novel. Something Villeneuve doesn't seem as interested in tackling at all in his muted aesthetics. I don't think he really cares about that. But I felt the performers leaning more into it. Javier Bardem, like, I felt that a bit more here.
And that's good.
What I liked. Yeah. Oh, Ferguson. I think we need a whole section on her.
No, we're going to talk about her
as Lady Jessica. But I
don't know that I can do it.
We'll carry it. But
I might need to sit that one out.
Yeah, you might need to go get a glass of water.
I think I preferred this. I loved the ending. I thought the ending really worked for me. I was surprised by that. I think it opens in a really, really strong way. It loses me a bit in the middle, but it's it's just a bunch of sequences sort of strung together.
Yes.
For me.
Yes.
I don't feel a lot of connective tissue there. And the pacing is the bigger problem that really keeps me from feeling like this is a movie that allows you to feel what it's trying to say. Because the themes are, they're immense. And I think, need a better storyteller to tackle those. I also think it's odd that it truly just picks up right where 1 left off. It's kind of a weird thing.
Incredibles 2 did that very successfully. Thank you very much.
And I get why he did that, but I think it was a strange choice.
That's
but
because
I also
he cut it off at a completely inconceivable point at the end of the first movie.
Brad Bird's Dune. I'd take it.
That'd be good.
That'd be
I also had trouble focusing on the first 30 seconds of this movie because I shouldn't go to AMC theaters ever. I forgot why I don't go. A woman walked in late and was shining her flashlight in everyone's face trying to find her seat.
Well, is that the part where of the movie where it starts?
It's when we have Irulan's voiceover.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, so I will say I liked it more than part 1, but I do not think it's a perfect movie. I can't get on the bandwagon of this is the greatest sci-fi movie we have.
I don't know that there's room on that bandwagon.
Yeah.
No, they kicked me out when I didn't like part 1, so I can't get on now.
We did that episode on the main show like last year, I believe, when we talked about top 5 sci-fi movies of all time. So Dune didn't come up then and it's not coming up now. Jay,
I think this is up there with Blade Runner. Or
I don't. This I'm just
I'm
going to
not
go.
talking 2049. I'm talking.
I was just going to say I'm going to put my cards on the table. Blade Runner 2049, way better movie than both Dune movies, separate or combined. Easily.
Ryan, I cannot believe how much you did. Not only did you not love this movie, but you've turned on one.
I have turned a little bit on one.
This is
I'll talk about that in a minute.
I didn't expect to like it the most. I will say that.
I like it more than I like it more than Ryan does. I will say that.
I'll explain my frustrations in a minute. Yeah. Jay, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so my biggest takeaway, if you want like my blurb, and this is a comparison, it's just that Oppenheimer, so Nolan and Villeneuve.
Oh, we're going there.
Hell yeah, let's go.
Nolan and Villeneuve are kind of inexplicably they're tied forever.
They are tethered to one another.
Yeah, they're inextricably, not inexplicitly, which I was about to say.
Yeah,
a stupid thing that would have been.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, buddy.
They're tied together forever. And the thing that I was thinking about as I was leaving the theater was Oppenheimer was a movie about people talking in rooms that felt like the biggest movie ever made.
Yep.
And Dune Part 2 is a movie that, by its very nature, is one of the biggest movies ever made. And it gets so bogged down into tedious scenes of people talking in rooms. So it's just this. This is the first time where I watched a Villeneuve film, I think, and part one might be a little bit of this too, but when he was working on a movie of this scale, and I felt like his decisions were detrimental to the story that he was trying to tell. And I think a lot of it does come down to what Sophia was talking about with that muted palette that this film has, the design. It kind of goes from brutalist to minimalist to occasionally very maximalist, especially with, it's interesting how maximalist the Hans Zimmer score is compared to how brown everything is. God, this movie's brown. And it's
sponsored by UPS.
What can Brown do for you? What can Brown do for you? Not a lot.
Not a lot, Greg Fraser.
Aesthetically. But this movie there are moments in this movie that do just make you feel the power of cinema. There really are. I think the last half hour of this film is extraordinarily successful. I think the scene, the monochromatic Austin Butler gladiator scene is really interesting and just powerful in, Sophia, like you're saying, it's weirdness. It's unique. Yeah. It's different. You're like, I don't know that I've ever really seen anything like that in a movie of this scale. But there are long stretches of this movie where I felt nothing. I felt no thematic propulsion. I felt nothing emotionally. And that's a problem. The thing is, I do have a lot of good things to say about this movie. I've been a Chalamet skeptic from day one. I think he is very good in this.
He's very good. I agree.
He's super good in this movie.
I would argue this is maybe the best he's ever been. Austin Butler, I've been the opposite of a skeptic since day one. And
you've been on the Butler stock
what I've been,
for a while.
We did our little movie star stock market thing recently, and I was like, Butler, buy. I'll buy it at twice the value. And this has only reinforced that stance for me. But Chalamet is really good. I don't think Zendaya is really. I don't know. I'm still not all the way there on Zendaya. I don't think she's given a ton to do in this movie. But just from a pure visceral level, I really felt it at the end of the film. But there were truly 30-minute stretches of the movie where I was just like, exactly what Sophia said. Okay, here's a scene, and then here's another scene, and then here's another scene after that. In the same way that I felt the sensation. This is I'm sorry to people for making this comparison.
I have one coming too.
I had a similar sensation watching this movie that I had when I watched Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, where it was just a bunch of scenes stitched together that were jarringly edited and gave a sensation of a world that had no cohesion to it. That said, again, a lot of it rocks. But as it feels more like, this quilt of these composited squares instead of this true kind of melting pot, fully realized propulsive experience. And so I do like it. I think it offers, if you ask me what are some of the best action sequences of the year, like 3 of them from this movie might be in that list. But in totality, it doesn't congeal in the way that I was hoping it to. And my opinion on Dune 1, Ryan, when we did that episode, I was like, I don't fully know what I think of this movie yet because it's not finished.
Yeah.
And now it's finished. And in my opinion, it's a pretty good sci-fi movie. That's where I'm at. I think I like it less than I did 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. That's the thing, is the more you think about this one, the more problems start coming up.
This is one of those, you watch it, you watch some movies and then you think back to the director's earlier films and you're like, do those movies have the same problems that I now see in this one that I just missed? Welcome. That's the experience I had watching Next Goal Wins.
Yeah.
God.
I was like, has this guy been a fraud the whole time?
Taika?
Yeah. And like I need to go back and watch Hunt for the Wilder People and be like, I liked that.
To be fair with Taika, I mean, you're not going to get a fair and balanced response from Sophia because she loves
I'm just going to mute myself.
Yeah, but I'm saying that as a friend. Like I know Sophia despises that man. But I will say, I will say this about Taika, and I've said this to Sophia, and I even said this to you, Jay. He has been oversaturated in the market that everything he comes off now is all in the same vein.
His public persona has really poisoned his movies.
Since Thor Ragnarok, he has basically made the same film with the same sort of
But how good was he in Free Guy? I mean, he was...
Oh, that's a movie I lived to forget.
But I think that there's
that might be one of the most unethical pieces of art of the last decade.
Yeah. But I
was
will,
so depressed after I watched
a despicable object.
Yeah, I will say this though about Taika. I think a movie like Hunt for the Wilder People, its innocence and its sweetness, I think it's still a very good movie. If I took his name off of it, because he's not in the movie at all. Like that's the trick of that movie. It's like it's really good because he's not in it.
He's doing like a Mike Myers shtick.
Yeah, he's
Next Goal Wins. It is bizarre.
It's bad.
I haven't seen it.
He's doing some Love Guru type stuff.
It's on Hulu right now.
Maybe I'll watch it when I don't know.
No, you won't. Don't let yourself. Don't let yourself. Okay. I was the biggest fan of Dune Part 1. I really did love that movie coming out of the theater. I saw it twice in IMAX.
You said it was a great experience, a whole movie in and of itself.
Yep,
loved it. Nothing can poison the well of Dune 1.
Nope. I was drinking from the water of life. Okay. And I was not parched in the desert at all. And I was like, give me Part 2. I was to Sophia's credit about making comparisons. I was like, this, and to me, it did feel like this was the closest we were going to get from a studio level to something like Lord of the Rings, because it had the risk involvement in it as well of let's just make one and see if it'll get a response enough. It was very successful enough to get Part 2, got a lot of Oscars. It was the big quote unquote cinematic comeback event of 2021, and then of course like 2 months later that got erased because the Spider-Man movie came out, which in comparison also to those two movies, Dune 1 far superior in terms of visuals and everything.
Nobody talks about anymore, that Spider-Man movie.
Exactly. And so, but yet it made like $2 billion, that
movie. Let me just say, I'm gonna get some hate for this movie, which I like more than I don't. That Spider-Man movie stinks. That movie is objectionable.
Jay, let's stay on track. But you're not wrong.
I don't think I've seen it.
You didn't see it?
I don't see.
I know, but everybody saw that.
I'm
movie.
not everybody.
That's true. No,
one of one. Sophia.
One of one. Yeah, exactly. So I was, but there was a movie that came out last year, and
The Holdovers.
The movie was called. Yeah, it was a really good movie. Paul Giamatti, really good. There's a movie called Oppenheimer, and I've told Sophia this.
Oh, I hate that I started this.
I'm just laughing because it's like it just didn't take long at all to get here.
No,
and
it's not taking that long.
Here.
No, but here's why. Here's why. No. Here's why. Here is why.
I'm sure you have this locked and loaded already, but
here's why. When I see something that really, really affects me, the way that Oppenheimer did, I haven't felt that like I love this movie. This is a movie made for Ryan specifically since probably 2019 Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Before that, Moonlight, Phantom Thread, Mad Max Fury Road, these movies that I'm like, holy shit, I will remember the first time I watch it, and I will remember every time afterwards I've watched it. A movie I will become obsessed with. It is my movie. That is me all the way through. And after that, unfortunately, movies of that size and scope and scale, they get a little bit compared to the overall experience of feeling of hang on. I let you all talk.
No.
Hang on.
This is not the Steven Soderbergh film from 2021. Let them all talk.
Let them all talk. Jay, it was about how I felt emotionally connected with that director taking me on a nearly 3-hour, $100 million movie ride. And then this movie with almost nearly double the budget, as much star power as that movie has, this movie just emotionally invested wise, I felt so disconnected from the first movie. And the more I have been thinking about the first movie, so Sophia rewatched the first film. I had no desire to rewatch Dune Part 1 before I saw Dune Part 2.
Well, we watched it like 4 months ago.
Yeah, but if I really like a movie and I love it, and I'm anticipating a sequel, damn it, I'm going to watch that first one and I'm going to get ready for it. I was more excited for this stupid bucket that's been out there in this world. And I thought, you know what? Well, I'm not being fair. I'm not being fair.
We got a whole 20-minute segment on the bucket.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the bucket. We're going to talk about the bucket. And so I went and saw this film. And I think that every complaint for the last 3 years that Jay and Sophia have said about this being half a movie, it did not fully hit me until this movie. Because I don't think this movie and the one that we saw in 2021 connect story-wise, thematically, emotionally enough to make it even one movie as a whole, let alone being as part of a trilogy. Because for me, the religious fanaticism that you talk about there, Sophia, if we're continuing the story from the first film and picking this up to where we are now with this one, it feels completely out of left field. From if you're just thinking about, let's connect these two movies together. Let's say that we didn't have 3 years in between a strike and all this other stuff. We're just watching them back to back. We started it. Act 2 begins. I don't think it connects. I think the characters, the way they act, completely start molding and shifting because the book makes them do that. Because
the story requires them to. That's
exactly
what I'm saying. It's like
it's
the story
just
has to go here, so we have this scene, and then this is going to be the next thing.
But that's book logic. That's not cinema logic.
I mean, you could adapt.
And
Dune.
I think that Denis Villeneuve is too interested in making the ultimate Frank Herbert adaptation rather than making a movie made by an actual director with a vision in mind.
Because it's not, like Sophia's saying, it's not weird enough. I'd hand up. I've read like half of Dune because I was like, this is part one. It is dense. So Sophia was talking about it. It's not great when at the end you're like, I'm proud of myself for finishing that.
Yeah.
No, but it's not. Like it
is an almost academic text.
And I love academia. You guys know that. But I love the the rules and the structure and that type of reading, but that doesn't necessarily, I think what you're saying, Ryan, it's interesting when you have someone who feels like very beholden to making a film that is an adaptation of the book. And I don't know, I guess I don't know. I think I'm a little unsure of how I feel about his relationship to the book based on the changes that he made.
It's the Zack Snyder problem, I think.
But also, but if you go back
to bring it back, I mean, I don't. The Zack Snyder problem.
You keep bringing up Snyder.
But he's the meathead philosopher, is what Snyder is. I mean, that's his whole thing. Is he's this guy who thinks he has these grand ideas and he wants to explore them, and it's kind of like, oh, that's cute that you wanted to do that, and then you watch Watchmen and you're like, oh, so you completely misunderstood everything about this book. Like, I know you think that this is some very rich text, which it is, but you're taking it so literally. And I feel like Villeneuve is taking it so literally.
Yes, that's the point. That's where, Sophia, you can comment on this, even though I've seen these movies dozens and dozens of times. When you watch Peter Jackson, who is creating 3 movies based off these unadaptable books, just like Dune, he is doing it with such love, care, and precision, not for just the world of Middle Earth, but for the characters. And he is also, at the time, he's not the biggest director in the world. He's not an Academy Award nominee even at that time. He's a guy that's mostly made horror films and Heavenly Creatures.
Yeah, he was like a schlocky horror.
Yeah, he was just like, but this was his big swing. And this was his check. And if this failed, he was never going to probably make another movie again, because those movies cost an arm and a leg. And the same thing goes for Villeneuve.
He got to make all 3 at once.
And that did help, but it was a fight. And he also had screenwriters that really, one of the screenwriters was his wife, and they really understood this text. They understood that the characters came first, and then the world and the lore and the mythology come second. If you don't have characters, interesting characters, thematically, just that can move your plot along, and that can get you invested into the movie, and aren't just caricatures of things that we've seen or know from sci-fi lore or from reading it on a Wikipedia page, and then that means then it's not going to work. But if you can do that, if you can successfully do that, then you have something special. Then you have something timeless. Then you have something memorable. And then, I mean, Jackson was mostly never able to recapture that magic, but there are elements of his style inside that movie. If you watch Lord of the Rings, there are some pretty horrific things that only you would know how to do if you were a low-rent horror film director that was finally getting a blank check. There are different jump scares, or there's different things that he's able to do.
What is the "you shall not pass" moment in the Dune series? There isn't one.
Well, I mean, that's great dialogue, but Denis Villeneuve wouldn't say that that's good dialogue, because dialogue
"you shall not pass" is not. It's not like that's great dialogue, but it's emotionally charged.
Yeah, but people say it all the time. They don't say.
But that moment is tied to a particular character who you come to love.
And it's consequential to the entire group.
Yes, for the whole group. It's like
the
that's
story
why that moment matters.
Yeah. That is
I'm like this now.
I mean, Sophia's become a nerd alert.
I'm not a Lord of the Rings guy by any stretch of the imagination, but it is like
that's the end of the Fellowship.
More powerful than anything that happens in Dune or Dune.
It helps also having Ian McKellen.
I mean, that's true, but this movie's got 1,000 great actors in it.
Yeah, but none of them have a moment. And honestly, I mean, obviously, those movies are like 20 something years old now, so they're like, then they're ingrained in our culture and everything. But like,
let me just say this: Josh Brolin as Paul's cheerleader, Academy Award on the way.
But like, no, but it goes back to the first one. It's like, I mean, everybody knows what Fear is the Mind Killer is, but that's just because of the book and stuff like that. And I guess, yeah, that's the same thing. But there's not. What is the moment that you guys all remember from the first one? Then you're like, that's the moment to like, that's Dune.
Oh my God, that is a great question.
Honestly, the better question, it's not actually to ask Sophia. Jay would be actually to turn the tables and ask you, because she's seen it more recently than you have. So like,
I saw it several months ago.
We saw it like 4 months ago. I mean, I guess it's the worm attack, right?
Yeah, I mean, the spice harvester scene is really good.
Yeah, I just think of everything with Oscar Isaac.
Like to Sophia's point again, like I think Momoa is very good in that movie, but when he dies, it's so
a thud.
Whatever.
It's a blip.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, this guy died.
Really, that's one of the big emotional, in theory, sequences at the end of that movie. But it just doesn't hit. I mean, Duncan Idaho, one of the great names in cinema.
But like coming to this movie, Sophia, you talk about it like it picks right back up right where the other one left off.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't even pick up aesthetically the way the first movie ends and is shot.
This movie looks like freaking good. Like every technical piece of this movie is really good. Except again, the general aesthetic of it is
I would say brown. Everything outside of what we've normally see from Arrakis from the first film. I think that like when you like you're talking about the Harkonnen planet, like that's, I mean, it's pretty interesting that we've seen variations of that in the first film as well. I guess where the Emperor and the Princess are from, like they just took a set from Game of Thrones that was left over and decided to use that.
I have a point on that, actually.
You know, and everything. Like
I like the little spiky ships.
Yeah, like the spiky ships. I think the final location
like
of the
mines, those are cool.
I like the final set piece where they're at for the duel and everything, and like the confrontation. Like
Villeneuve can make a dang set.
Like it's
Villeneuve and company.
Yeah.
I think Greg Fraser's work is significantly lesser in this movie, and I think that Joe Walker's editing, in terms of its pacing, is
I think the editing
extremely poor.
The downfall of the movie,
and I think
Zimmer's not that again. It doesn't. God, I hate that we talk this way about the movie, but it's just because everybody else is so gaga for this thing.
Yeah, but they are legitimate criticisms as to bringing up like why this movie comes to a halt, because I do think that just because everybody on this team has an Oscar does not mean that they are immune to the criticisms that this movie does feel a little bit, at least for me. I know you guys might be different. It felt to me as if a team that was put it on cruise control. And that's the difference between like Lord of the Rings and this. It's like all those movies were made at once, so they didn't have a choice. The quality stayed consistent the entire time. You didn't see that really aesthetically change that much from film to film. This, we will see that in these movies going forward in this franchise. And for me, I think the opening, like the sunrise, sort of sequence in the desert is gorgeous because it's using the shadow, and it's, because it's about a war sequence right there. It's, about, using the shadow as your ally. But throughout the rest of this movie, it's brown, 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 brown. And then like everything else is kind of like very jarring to get into when you then cut back to the same looking brown aesthetic that is changed throughout the film. And then you edit that back and forth. And also those characters are so minor.
There are so many characters who do absolutely
nothing in this movie.
So you talking about it being a recycled Game of Thrones set.
Mm-hmm.
So this movie to me felt like Game of Thrones. A lot of it, because with the structure, like one of my, a hang up of just watching one episode of Game of Thrones is that I would always think like, oh, why haven't I spent any time with the Lannisters this week? Like that's my favorite place to be, right? Is with the Lannisters, with whatever
with the
is
bad
happening
guys.
there. Yeah, right. Or like I don't know. And I think inherently what this movie does is it goes back and forth between so many different locations and minor characters who you are just now getting introduced to, which is not how the book is either. Like the book opens, like you meet Feyd-Rautha in the second chapter of the book.
Before
early.
Sophia, not to cut you off, I do apologize.
No,
I did not say this up front, but probably shouldn't have said this 20 or 30 minutes into this conversation. We are going to go full spoilers into this movie. This book has been out since 1965.
I feel like we haven't even really gone into.
We haven't gone into spoilers, but I feel like right as we're about to go into this, we're going to go full spoilers. I will be putting this.
Like everybody
in the show
already
notes.
Turned it off.
Yeah,
so
they probably. Matter. Yeah, if you haven't seen Dune Part 2, like maybe go watch it. Or they've
seen it, and maybe don't want to hear it.
We're releasing this podcast before it comes out wide.
Exactly.
I think, so.
Yeah, it's coming. Today's Friday. It's coming out today.
So I find like the balance between the characters, it's completely off to me. Like that's hard because you get attached to a specific character or a group of characters, like the Bene Gesserit, where like when I think back to Dune Part 1, the scene that I think of. Like, yes, it's naked Oscar Isaac at the table, but it's also that Gom Jabbar scene when we first see Paul put his hand in the box and we meet the Reverend Mother and we learn a little bit more about the rules of that world.
Yeah.
And Lady Jessica. So when we start to learn more here about the Bene Gesserit and we meet Lady Margot, and we learn more about Lady Jessica and about the rules of the Bene Gesserit and how they've basically had this breeding program and have been controlling things. That is so interesting. Like that is where all of the political intrigue is for me and where I want to be. And I want to see how that connects to what's going on with Paul and Chani, because that's where a lot of the religious fanaticism is. And in the book, and in the movie somewhat, like those things need to be inherently linked for the film to work. And I feel because of the structure and the editing here and the writing that they're not as linked up as they could
be.
Jumpy, yeah. And there's so much too to like the fact that Lady Jessica was supposed to have a daughter instead of Paul. And that girl was supposed to marry Feyd-Rautha.
Right.
So because that didn't happen, now there's a conflict. And it's like all of those little intricacies
are not here.
Those aren't here in the way that I wanted them to be. And it's just such a shame because those are the areas where I wanted to spend more time. And I felt like sometimes he wanted to spend the time there and other times it felt like I have too much to cover. I have to move on to the next thing. And because of that, everything felt a little underbaked.
It feels like Cliff Notes to a book. It feels a little Cliff Notey.
I don't even know if
it does because what you're describing.
The worlds are so beautiful. Like I do, like I do get.
I think it's an achievement of design. Genuinely,
yeah.
I think of production design. Sure, I don't think
costumes. Oh my god!
I think the costumes are very good. I just from what Denis Villeneuve describes as a visual standpoint. The production and the costumes, great. Cinematography wise, all over the place. Way this movie shot, all over the place.
I did love the shots of the baby in the womb.
The shot
those.
It's a lot better than
the shot from above when he's walking through the crowd is incredible. I really do think that towards the end of the film,
good CGI
makes me kind of sick.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, God, put a mask on.
Sick is kind of. I think that is.
It's the point. Yeah.
I think that is a sensation that is worthy. I think that's.
But going back to
admirable goal.
But Sophia, going back to what you were saying about the Bene Gesserit, which I think is, I mean, that's where you can get kind of Game of Thronesy, right? But that's actually where, like you're saying, all the intrigue is at. It's so interesting of these people have set the world and the stage for not just who has control, and it's all been about spice. Well, it's actually not even about spice. It's just about them making these political chess moves with these boys and knowing their connections and knowing their secrets. It is one that can breathe more than just and their connections to the emperor. the connections to the princess, the connections to this
Emperor
overtaking.
Also undercooked.
Oh, completely
compared to the
undercooked.
book.
Like, yeah.
I mean, Emperor not good.
No, poor Christopher Walken, like playing a Joe Biden version of the Emperor.
And then, that whole family. I mean, the Florence Pugh thing is tough.
Florence Pugh needs to get a new goddamn manager, publicist. She is making moves right now.
Her in Oppenheimer. I actually think she really makes the most of that role in Oppenheimer. But
I agree.
I think I'm kind of in the minority on that.
No, I agree. I know. I think Sophia's not in that camp. But I think that once again, she is okay. Here's the thing about Florence Pugh in this movie. She has been promised in the media. Some
good fits.
She's been promised in the media and in interviews that Denis Villeneuve said, if you sign up for this one, you're more of the focal point in the third one. And who does that sound a lot like? It sounds a lot like the same cock and bull story that he gave Zendaya in the first one to get her into this one. And I think that character by the end,
part of the second,
it's a bigger part.
We should talk about Chani.
We should talk. I do want to talk about Chani.
I want to say one thing before I forget it.
Yeah.
I talk about this being an achievement of design, and I think it largely is. I think the sandworms being the exact same color of the sand.
Yeah.
Is such a mistake.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And even if I understand from like an evolutionary standpoint, it totally makes sense that they would be the same color as the sand. But from a cinematic standpoint, sometimes you just have to make a choice.
I think,
and
I
they
think,
didn't do that here.
I think it
makes the most like cathartic moments of the movie when he is able to wrangle the giant sandworm, and that's supposed to be like, oh, he really is the one. It just doesn't hit nearly as
See,
hard
I don't think that is the problem. That scene was the problem for me, where he finally learns how to ride one.
I like
the giant.
I don't think that one's the problem. I think it's the battle scene. Yes, where all five or six of them attack.
I thought
the
that
Emperor's
kind of
army.
All you see is their big little mouths.
Yeah, but like it's supposed to feel epic and big and everything. And I liked it more
when it was. I liked it more when Kyle MacLachlan was on top of the worm and they were playing hair metal.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's like that's the kind of like
I mean that is
swing
weird though, right?
that you kind of want.
I don't even want to talk about the Lynch.
No, we're not.
Dune,
No.
But
I can't do that.
But going back to before we get into Chani, because I think that's going to be a big conversation we have to have. I did want to just wrap up here with the Bene Gesserits. Is that there are reveals in this movie, specifically with Lady Jessica and the Harkonnens, that you're not even just talking about that through line, which is something actually that should have been addressed in part one.
Mm-hmm.
It's this whole, with that being that drama, if you set that up in part one, the reveal that she is Harkonnen and that Paul is part of that bloodline as well as with the Atreides bloodline, and that's what's kind of sparked this whole rivalry and feud through everything, that is completely underbaked. That whole side plot is just kind of like, oh, by the way, I know you revealed this, and by the way, like future Anya Taylor-Joy, who we hope can take over this franchise, she's going to come in here and just kind of tell you this offhand, and then we kind of just move that along. That is important information to the decisions as to why an entire race of people and an entire house of people were destroyed, and it is thrown off like it is a footnote on this story, and it is huge to this. Yeah. And that is the decision of having a director who understands the emotional and significant plot point values to a note like that, a twist, right?
It doesn't even feel like a twist when it happens, right? That's the weirdest part too.
No, it doesn't feel like a twist, but in the book it is a twist, right? It's like it is a giant reveal of like, holy shit, like when Paul kills the Baron, he's killing his grandfather. It's all a part of the family.
Well, let's talk about that actually.
And it's like, what the fuck? Like,
so quick note again, just this is a book change that I found really interesting. Okay. So the Anya Taylor-Joy character, she should be here. If she should be 4 years old. To the book. Yeah. She should be a 6-year-old. She's kind of like a reverse Bella Baxter.
Like in Lynch's movie.
Brilliant. She has all, and she's the one who kills the Baron.
Yeah.
So I thought that was just like an interesting thing that he changed up here, but I
get that
get why he
I
did
think
it.
it's to make it
smart.
again. It's that image.
A child
where he's more interested in making it seem like a 2001 pastiche than.
I think so too.
I think it's also they are trying to make a movie for general audiences
pastiche
to go see.
Strong. I've been really using.
And if you have a 6-year-old child,
homage. Let's call it homage.
Yeah, I think if you have a 6-year-old child killing a giant man, the people would be like, fun. I think it would be great. I would be all for it, but most people would be like, that's some weird ass shit. Like, you know what I mean?
No,
like
it's true.
It's true. But that's the thing. It's like, that's kind of the stuff that, not to bring up Lynch too much, but that is how it goes in the Lynch film. And it's part of some of the people's problems or the interesting imagery. But that movie does take chances. Like the more I was watching this one, I was
don't like that movie, right?
I don't like that movie.
About that movie. You don't like the movie. I like
that movie's
movie.
An abomination. But that movie also is, even though like Lynch disavows that entire movie, it feels like chances were being made. Like, you know what I mean?
I mean, there are absolutely choices being made in Dune, and many of them were sort of, against Lynch's will. But
exactly.
The thing about Villeneuve, and I think we will all probably agree on this, is Villeneuve is palatably weird. He is
no shit
weird enough for normal people to be like, "Ooh, that was interesting," but not weird enough to put people off.
Yeah,
right. I mean, that's kind of how I feel about him. He's.
I think that
he's a half measure weirdo.
When I watched this movie, I was like, man, I do really miss Roger Deakins working with Villeneuve, because
can you imagine?
I could just imagine that this movie would be so much more visually propulsive for me and he would make it look like that desert didn't look the same every single time. Like, I think that,
but that's more, I think that's more design than, because I think when it reminds me,
it could be design.
I keep doing these, like, it reminds me of, but and I keep doing it to the worst movies ever made.
Yeah, you really are. You're taking the opposite
Lion
swings.
King live-action version.
Oh my god!
God damn it, Jay!
Where they were
you were like early on in this episode. You were like, we're gonna try not to get killed today, and you have brought up Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice and The Lion King 2019.
They were so slavishly committed to trying to make that look natural, like the world would, that it makes the whole thing so ugly.
It made they got stuck.
And this isn't that bad, but it is like they're so committed to making it seem like this full desert planet that it does give it this blandness.
I think it's not as bad in the first movie, or we don't notice it as much, is because there are a lot of
see Rebecca Ferguson's face, and you see that paint on there, and I'm like, hold on a second.
But I think in the first movie,
that unlocked something in me that
in the first movie,
that might be why I have such a problem with this movie, is because I'm not sure how to really deal with.
It's like me with Austin Butler,
my feelings.
I think.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sequences at night in the first movie. There's a lot of sequences in different chambers as well, and we spend a lot more time and different. So I think that it's not as visibly noticeable as it is for literally an hour and 45 minutes straight. It felt like, or at least an hour and 15 straight of this 2 hours and 45 minute movie
where
we are spending the majority of that time with the Fremen, with Paul and his acceptance into that group, which I will say I thought was actually really well done.
Mm-hmm.
And I did like the connections that he has with Chani there. And I think that that's a good segue to talk about her as a character, because I think this movie sets her up to be very one note and not have a lot of depth to her. And I don't think that it's Zendaya's fault. I ultimately think this is the screenplay's fault for not, I mean, he has gone on the record. I'm not putting words in his mouth. He's gone on the record, Denis Villeneuve, of saying this is supposed to be her movie. And I like the idea of that, and that these reveals and Paul's rise and betrayal of her and all these different things, she literally by the end of the film is the only character that thinks that any of this is wrong. And yet we get no moments with her actually emotionally confronting that, or maybe somebody else. Like, she is told, even by Brolin's standpoint, accept this and fight it and just move the fuck on. And I think that by the end, when she runs away, like, I
never got the feeling that he loved Chani.
Yeah.
That was what I was going to ask. Like, I think I keep seeing people talk about this as like a great love story and a great romance. And that's just not something I feel. And it's also just not something that, like, I find the character of Chani, when I really think about her, to be really heartbreaking. Like, this is a character who becomes Paul's concubine. Like, there's nothing, and who has a pretty devastating end. Like, there's nothing here, though. I think what Villeneuve has tried to do, I think, in trying to give Zendaya a bit more and to try to say, like, you know, we're going to build Chani out a bit, is that here in the movie, she actually, compared to the book, seems a bit more aware of what's going on in terms of the religious themes and to what Paul is doing. And that is, on its face, I think, really interesting. It's like when, you know, when Kay, sorry, now I'm bringing up The Godfather, when she realizes what when Kay realizes, like, who Michael is, right? Yeah. There's that moment that happens when that character becomes more compelling. And I think that's kind of what he wanted to do with Chani, like, to make her the one. But in making her the one, again, you have to feel something from that. You have to understand where that's coming from and why she's the one who, of the Fremen, is so wary and studious, really, of him, as she's studying him carefully and his actions and what everyone is doing. And that, I don't understand. That doesn't come through for me in their relationship or in individual moments for her.
No.
It's communicating something that isn't felt.
No. Yeah. I mean, they have, don't get me wrong, I think Zendaya and Chalamet work great opposite one another. I think that they do.
I disagree.
I thought you would say that. I think that they actually do it, like in the first half of this movie, the way in which they are connecting, they're becoming one. It's before the mind of everyone is made up into this movie, is when I think that, like, when there's still a divide amongst the Fremen about Paul's place in all this, I think that that's when Chalamet and Zendaya are strongest the most together. I think then, from his point of invincibility, in the best way I could say, when he becomes a god, essentially, the story completely shifts. And it's supposed to do that because Paul is not a hero. He's never been, like, if you know the story, if you know anything about Dune, this is the rise of a monster, of like, I mean, the way Chani talks about it at the beginning of the first Dune, in the voiceover, when she mentions who will be our next ruler, essentially, who will rule over us next. And it should hit more and be a callback to that line of that the next person that is going to take over and destroy my life and destroy the life of my people is the man that I love. Like, that should be
so painful.
That, right? Is that fucking is so painful. And this
Look
movie,
at Killers of the Flower Moon.
Oh, when Chani is rejected at the end and Paul proposes this marriage with, I don't even know the Florence Pugh character's name, but and she, like, storms out, I'm like, I feel nothing right now.
I
feel nothing.
That scene should zoom in on her face. It should stay there, or we should have a scene beforehand, or she's like,
it just never establishes that as, like, an honest.
But you know what?
Love.
To bring it back to Kay and The Godfather Part 2.
See, Sophia keeps bringing up The Godfather Part 2, and I'm like, Lion King 2019.
Yeah,
I do want to talk
Batman
a little bit about
Superman.
The Godfather, and I think why those comparisons are coming up a bit, and why it actually sets this film up for an even bigger failure, really.
Yeah. But I'll let you have that one in a second, if you don't mind me just saying. Kay gets a scene. She gets the ultimate scene. There is one of the greatest scenes in cinema history is in Godfather 2, where
this must all end.
And she has something that Michael wants, and she takes it from him. And that is the line that divides and destroys their family. And it is powerful and so well written and well acted.
That's just a different device. That's not what this movie is trying to do.
But the point is, she doesn't even get a tiny little bit of a scene like that.
No, I agree with that.
She doesn't get a moment to realize where, like, okay, one of these people, this Fremen that has now turned into a blind leader, none of the other ones see that this is problematic. And that's the difference between reading it in a book and seeing it in a movie. It's like, not everyone's just going to flip. And then also you have her still following him blindly into battle when Brolin tells her to accept it. And then the reveal is her being betrayed after she's already just fought for him again. It thematically, just narratively, doesn't work on either level. And it falls apart. And then by the end, we're supposed to still be on her journey, because if this is all one movie, the first thing we hear is her, and the last thing we hear and see is her. What happened in the middle? And it's something he couldn't fix, because he already had the other one come out, and he tries to do here, and he doesn't do it enough. He doesn't do it enough. Anyway, you were going to make a comparison, Sophia. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just thinking about Timothée Chalamet and his performance and why he's so great in it. I really think it's because you have to, in order for the performance to work, you have to believe in his confidence as a character, and in that switch to that, in the growth to that from part 1 to part 2. And in that, I think throughout history, literature, film, we have this idea of the rise and fall narrative of sympathetic perpetrators or anti-heroes, those sorts of characters. But in order for that to work, I think the character has to, in the film, actually be really well drawn. And this film starts to use some of the tropes and the outlines of a transition narrative, but we never have those moments where we feel connected to why Paul is doing something or what he's doing. And the big problem here, as much as Denis Villeneuve and Greg Fraser get credit for the camera doesn't communicate anything about character. That's one of my
it's all about
biggest
scale
problems. It's scale, it's set. It doesn't communicate about the character. I think there's some exceptions in this movie, and they're mostly with Austin Butler, with Fade Rotha. I think that's where the camera is probably used best to show the danger and the fear associated with that character. But
it's also easy
Paul,
because he's the most kind of black and white character.
He's the most slippery, slimy.
Yeah.
He's so fucking good in this movie. It is ridiculous.
He's so good.
I love him.
And he's not in it enough. Like he's
in it. You've said that. I think he's in it.
He's a little more developed here, I think, than he is in the book. I was kind of surprised.
I want more of him because he's so good. Sure.
Yes.
He's not a nothing.
You have Austin Butler for one fucking movie. You have marketed this movie as it is the two of them beating. You also have set the problem. You have set this movie up as that they are pawns in a game in which it has been destined in the goddamn stars by the Bene Gesserit. Have it be an equal measure. And the problem is, it's like you're doing Chani's storyline, you're doing Paul's storyline, Lady Jessica's storyline. Him being thrown into this.
They're not really doing Lady Jessica's storyline.
This is a mini series. This is a fucking mini series you're trying to do in one movie, and
2 movies.
Oh well, yes, 2 movies. Well, really, this movie, like this book, like right here, like this half the book with all of its complexities, all of its twists, all of its turns, all of its action, all the propulsion. It does feel as if like you could have made this actually into 2 movies more than just the first one, and extended that one maybe by like 30 minutes. To then
again, that's that literalization of the book, I think, where it's like I have to fit everything in, and so therefore a lot of stuff is going to be half baked.
Yeah, because because like Lea Seydoux is like all over this marketing, and she's like in it for
That's
like.
why Kevin Costner's splitting his Western into 4 parts.
That thing
Oh my
looks.
God, I can't wait to talk about that.
That movie looks.
I love the
We should
scene
do a
with Lea
Costner
Seydoux though.
series.
We should
my
not
God.
do it. We should not do a Costner series. No, thank you. I'm not talking Wyatt Earp with you.
And
Can we
Dances
do a
with
Kevin
Wolves
Costner
and
actor
Dune.
series? Can I talk about Bull Durham?
I've been on a mini Costner kick recently.
You mean on the Cos?
Yeah, I don't know why, but I mean, really, I do know why. It was
You're a
because
dad.
we watched Blue
Oh.
Chips, and I was like, oh, Ron Shelton, he rocks.
Yeah.
And then I watched Bull Durham and Tin
Tin
Cup.
Cup. You didn't like
You
Tin
guys
Cup.
know what I'm
I
seeing on-
didn't particularly care for Tin Cup, but Bull Durham absolutely rocks the house.
Guess what I'm seeing on Sunday in theaters for the
JFK.
first time? JFK.
You never seen JFK?
I got it right.
I've seen it, but not in
Oh,
theaters.
not in theaters. Oh, JFK
Yeah.
rules. I love Jay. He's so fucking good.
So good.
So
Oliver
good in
Stone,
the
such a level-headed filmmaker.
movie. Oliver Stone Dune. He would get the
Honestly, he could actually make probably pretty interesting Dune.
because of the whole political backstory angle.
Well, the
and,
thing,
and everything. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it would be interesting. But the thing about Dune, in and of itself, like on its face, it is supposed to be kind of the ultimate upending of the white savior story.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I do understand why you would make this movie and want to paint with very broad strokes. But there, at a certain point, all of those very broad strokes just start to blur together and they draw no definitive lines. And so it just ends up being this mass of
no. And then you go, well, then it goes back down to the MENA actors and not having anyone significant of value as other than background actors.
I mean, they're Chalamet. I will give him credit. I never thought Chalamet would ever be able to come across as intimidating,
to be fair,
or threatening, and he does a great job in this movie.
I will say, like,
the turn
I remember
really works.
Sophia, you and I were talking, and you were scared about him doing this turn because if he doesn't have this turn, which I think, even though the writing is, again, I think that the writing is mostly the problem here in this movie, along with some technical aspects, but the performances from everybody in this movie, for the most part, are fantastic. And Chalamet, I think, is great. I have not been selling stock like Jay has for most of the years on Chalamet. I've mostly been holding, but I think that, I mean, he's now the biggest movie star of his generation. There's no question about that. You're going to have this movie.
Is this movie going to make a lot of money?
It's making $180 to $90 million on opening weekend, and Wonka is
that what they're saying it's going to do?
And Wonka made $600 million.
You know what? I'll eat my words. Dude's a movie star.
Dude is a movie star.
What if it makes more than Oppenheimer? What will you do then?
I mean, there's a lot of movies. There's a lot of movies that have made more money than
Avengers
Oppenheimer.
Endgame made 3 times.
Fucking Super Mario Brothers last year made more than Oppenheimer. I slept fine. True. It's going to have the Oscars, and this one won't. So
I want to talk about Lady Jessica and Rebecca Ferguson.
Yeah,
because
it seemed like you're not a big fan of,
let's say,
of the storyline.
Shrift.
Really, you guys thought so?
I thought so 100%.
Really? I thought she was a big part of this movie.
Yeah, she's a big part. I think because she's so fabulous and this character arc is my favorite, I just wanted more.
I think I feel about Rebecca Ferguson how you feel about Austin Butler Ryan. Maybe she was in it more than I thought, but in my mind she should have been there so much more.
I get you. I do feel though,
because I love her turn.
I love her turn. She's super fucking cunty the entire time, and she's just she's so like that line when she's that moment when she's with Chani and she's essentially like smiling at her that she got her way with Paul drinking the water. That was fucking brilliant.
I do like the little mini worm where they extract the worm juice.
That was great. I love that.
That's little things like that, like where you're taking us just out of the desert aesthetic,
where it gets weird.
Yeah, where it's
weird,
like like, and she's like
wrestling the worm. And
but I do think, but to go back to the whole like rise and fall angle of it, the thing about the movie to me, and this is where like again Villeneuve does not understand as much of the importance of all this is, and this is I think maybe better explained in that Dune has been around for such a long time. It's such an influential text. It is one of, if not the most influential texts, that has ever, that for future sci-fi or sci-fi adjacent properties and movies and television shows and everything going forward. And the most interesting thing about this for Paul's journey here is that we've kind of seen this many times before. I think I was thinking a lot of like Star Wars, and I was thinking a lot of like, again, Empire Strikes Back, or even Rey's decisions in The Last Jedi, right? And how that there is this place of destiny, but there's still this uncertainty that lies at the end of their journey, and truths that they're going to be revealed that could shake them as a decision maker. The thing for me here was the moment we've established that you take this goddamn juice, this water of life, you essentially become a mega human. And everything from that moment on, it's like,
if you survive.
Well, we know he's going to survive. Like that's no level of suspense
but
out of that.
That's the draw of the story. Is it
like
is this reversal of that idea of this superhero?
No, but like yeah, I get that. But he
pulls off.
I mean, but then at the end, it's like he's sitting there like fucking Doctor Strange in the a fucking Avengers movie of like, I only see one possible path, and I've seen them all in my head. And this is how we're going to fucking do it. And you're like, oh, well, then the next 45 minutes don't fucking matter because we're going to see that path unfold. And while some of it's actually pretty interesting, like the dual fight between Feyre and Paul, the rest of that action stuff is like, it's just kind of like dominoes.
I think the
like
last
falling down, and it's not really interesting.
Absolutely rules. I think it's
love the ending.
I wish it ruled as much as for you. How did you see this, Jay? How did you see the movie?
I saw this at a press screening in a Dolby cinema.
Sophia?
IMAX 70 millimeter.
And I saw it in a regular screening without Dolby. So maybe that's why that propulsive scene at the end didn't work nearly as much. I am going to see it in IMAX.
I'll say this. I thought at one point that they had just put 4DX technology in the seats of the Dolby cinema because it was shaking.
Was it propulsive?
It was.
Is that
combative,
is that the magic though also of these movies?
Aggressive.
Is that like potentially why people like these movies, this one and the first one too. I'll lump the first one in there. Is because this is almost like the Oppenheimer effect of you have to see it on the biggest screen, the best sound possible. That's why when they did the fan only screens that you went to, Sophia, you know, they did it in the fan only, and that's the most ironic way for you to go.
Just said something mean, but
Jay, what were you going to say?
Sophia, just about
the fan screenings?
No, not about the fan screenings. It's just about this movie.
Okay, well, say it.
And I think we've said this about other Villeneuve movies too, but they're movies that make you feel smart without having to try very hard.
Yeah, but this one actually is from very smart material, though. So you have to think about
movies it. They're movies that exude a sense of intellectualism.
But doesn't that then can it come off the other way and
really have the
much
meat
to say? Yeah.
I think that's actually accurate. Like when you actually, because films that actually make you think and feel deeply, like stick with you, like they stick with you, right? Days later, you're still thinking about like the questions that come up for you during that viewing experience. I love films like that. And I feel like he is stretching or trying to go for that kind of like bleak intellectual feeling here.
He confuses mood with ideas, I think.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Because he's got a great handle on tone.
I think the thing that happened in between me writing the review that's up on the website right now.
God, do I not like Denis Villeneuve?
No. And hang on. Let me say this, Jay.
I'm having an existential crisis over here.
Okay, we'll keep it.
Continue.
Yes, thank you. Is in between this this episode coming out and when I did the review and when I saw the movie, there's a little video that went online, and it was with Denis Villeneuve and his hero. His hero, of course, is Christopher Nolan. And the video starts. The video. Hang on.
You told this to me. I don't like this. I don't.
The video starts off with Christopher Nolan jokingly saying, "I'm Christopher Nolan," and then points to the right of him and says, "And he's not." And what a perfect summation of Denis Villeneuve's career is that the man has tried to be Christopher Nolan for such a long time. And we all need to just finally, and the world needs to finally accept, he will never be Christopher Nolan, because that video summed up actually exactly their filmmaking there a little too. Nolan's a cheeky little fucker sometimes. And there is no ounce of, like, the one person that is providing charisma.
Many Christopher Nolan movies for having no sense of humor.
Oh, no. I think he's got way more sense of humor on average than Denis Villeneuve. He's never made as bleak of a movie as he's never made as bleak of a movie as Prisoners, as Enemy, not. As Unsandees.
Like, the thing about like
Polytechnique,
what I can't deal with though about like the bleakness, because I love a bleak movie. I love The Vanishing. I love Chinatown.
Zone of Interest.
I love the Zone of Interest, but like for his movies they're not just bleak, like they're empty.
They're bleak for the sake of it.
Yeah.
They're like, punching bags on the audience a little bit.
I think they're
so
trying to convince you they're intellectual because they're very serious.
Yeah, like the more I kept thinking about Unsandees the other week, like months ago. Yeah, it's him trying to do like almost like Memento, weirdly enough. And it's like you're never going to make
that. Yeah, I might be backtracking on the Nolan, because even Memento is sort of like a very playful movie.
Yeah, it's got some. I mean, it's got Joey Pants in it.
Yeah,
Joey Pants can never give a bad performance. You know, it's like, I mean, Nolan's just also.
I didn't like On Sundays even before we started talking about all this, but it's.
I've been on the record. I don't know how I feel about that.
But no,
Denis Villeneuve's not a filmmaker for me, but I do feel like sci-fi is the right place for him, but I also think like it brings out the best and the worst in him in ways. Because I think he feels kind of wedded to, he feels really, I think, he doesn't want to color outside of the lines.
He's been in it for so long now.
That's it.
That how do you get him out of this? Because he's going to make Messiah.
What has he been in there? Well, I guess he's done Arrival, Blade
and Blade Runner. That's almost a goddamn decade of this shit. Yeah. Like he's going to make Doom Messiah. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
He's already writing the script.
But I don't want, what
does he do next?
Denis Villeneuve's Oppenheimer be like? That would be just nonsense.
Oh, fuck. Well, I tell you what it would show. It would show what everybody was complaining about, and you would get it in the most gruesome way, I think, which is he would show the bombs going off. And I think that, and he would play it to a Radiohead song. And it would be, and it would,
he would do that.
He would do a Radiohead song for real. Yeah. He would do like something from like Hail to the Thief.
They did that in The Creator.
Yeah.
Which was kind of like.
They sure did.
That's probably what you would get. It's like The Creator. That's what, maybe a little bit more elevated because Gareth.
I do think.
What is that? Gareth Edwards?
Yeah, I can see Villeneuve trying to do an Oppenheimer style film, though.
Do you think so?
Here's the thing, though.
It's so serious, though.
He will get a check because these these almost said Blade Runner. That did not get him a check, even though it did get him a check. These Dune movies are going to get him a ton of clout because they're going to make
crazy that this movie is going to make $180 million.
It's going to make its budget back on the opening weekend worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
It will.
Love it.
And nothing is out in the month of in the month of March. Nothing is out.
Just a trio of Debbie Downers on here.
It's going to be. It will be a big thing. Is there other stuff we haven't talked about? I mean, like Brolin.
I mean, there's plenty of stuff that I like about the movie that I
love Brolin in this movie.
I love Brolin.
He should make a movie where Brolin's just the lead. Because God damn it, I
still really like Skarsgård.
Scarecrow's really good, even though that's dialed back. Dave Bautista gets a little bit more in this, and I thought Bautista was
awful.
Oh, you thought he was bad? I thought he was really good.
I didn't care for. Yeah, I mean, I would call him neutral. I didn't.
Charlotte Rampling.
Love Rampling.
When Timmy yells at her. When Timmy yells at her.
Starlight, and I was like, didn't love that because I love Rampling. But
you didn't like Timmy yelling at Charlotte?
Yeah, she's
like, how dare you? That's a legend. Queen.
Sophia's rooting for Charlotte. She wants Charlotte to be the Empress.
Yeah.
She's picking her sides in the Game of Thrones.
The scene with Lea Seydoux and Austin Butler is great.
Holy shit.
Love that when they're like in the shadows
and they want a bone. It's like,
and
there are some parts where it's like, why isn't the whole movie like this?
I know.
Yeah.
And she just like basically
seduces him,
numbs him and seduces him. And she comes back and she's like, okay, the bloodline is protected. We're good.
Yeah. I'm having his
whatever
baby.
Can happen now.
Yeah.
It's great.
She did what every girlie wants out there. She has Austin Butler's baby.
Living our dreams right in front of our eyes.
Good. You know what? She's been with James Bond and Elvis Presley. Good for
Austin Butler's going to be in Heat too.
Good for them, honestly. Being
good for them. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what? Lea Seydoux, very important person in this world. Are they going to make Heat 2 with Austin Butler? They should. They should totally fucking cash in.
I still don't. I'm on record. I don't think Heat 2 is going to happen. But
I think it's going to totally happen. Yeah. You didn't think this part was going to happen.
You see those Ferrari receipts?
Is Paul Thomas Anderson making his Heat right now?
Maybe.
I don't know what the fuck PTA is doing, but I am so into it. When we talk about that movie on this podcast, it's going to be insane.
Sophia's
no Debbie Downers. I'm not allowed.
I swear to God, this movie, not to go on a side tangent, even if it is a modern adaptation of Vineland or whatever the fuck it is, it looks kind of insane. Like it looks almost
I have
no
idea what Vineland is other than a book by Pynchon.
Yeah. You're gonna have to
I
read
could
it.
tell you no more about that novel.
You gotta go get it. Go read it. Yeah.
I will read it. I didn't like Inherent
political.
Vice. Yeah.
You didn't like the Inherent Vice book, but you love the movie.
I need to reread the book actually and see if I'll turn around on it.
Because it's not
sometimes postmodernism and reading it really is like an act of suffering.
I found that book exhausting.
Yeah.
What about What about Bardem? Do you guys like Bardem?
Bardem is very good in this.
Loved him. Thought he was very fun.
He was the one piece of comedic kind of energy.
Yeah. I will say Bardem's really good here. That's
energy in general.
The only I mean, like that's the thing. The movie's missing the Momoas, the Oscar Isaacs. Weirdly, Stephen
Henderson.
Yeah, he's nowhere to be found. He was supposed to be in this movie, and he's nowhere in here. Unless did you guys catch him? Because he's not in this.
I didn't.
I guess he was cut. But yeah, Bardem's character, he goes full into the fanaticism.
I said Steven Shabaka. I was thinking of Barry Shabaka Henley. What a fool I am.
What a fool you are. But it feels like a weird turn. I don't know, Sophia, maybe because you've seen the first part sooner than I have, or of the latest from us. But did it feel like a transition that felt right from that movie to this one? Because in that first one, he's standoffish when he first meets him with his dad, right? And he's like, "I know what you are. I know what you could be." He's almost like on Chani's side, and then by the end, he's like, "Okay, you killed what's his face. You can be with us." Now, when you start this one, he's like full on, "You're the one. You're going to bring balance to the universe."
I think
it was a little.
I think the relationship between I'll call them believers and atheists is so undercooked in this movie, and then it just sort of, and then all of a sudden everybody's in the big church or whatever, and it's just like, okay, so I guess
for that character, I didn't really think much of it in comparison to part one, just because he gets more time here because his arc really comes through that section. But I will say, like, it is kind of just obvious. Like, my audience treated him like he was the court jester of the movie.
Really?
Basically.
They were fucking like eating him up.
Every line, howling,
and hollering.
That's crazy.
every line.
That is crazy to think about with that character.
It was so funny because my sister and I would just look at each other. We're like, "This is bad news.
This is not. No, this is not.
Like, this is bad."
I mean, he's giving a performance, but it's also it's as scary as he's ever been since Anton Chigurh. Almost like
he's got some laugh. No, he's got some laugh lines in this.
He's got some laugh lines, but he's also he's almost in tandem with Lady Jessica to turn the Fremen to essentially make them an army to kill the emperor and take back everything and to believe in Paul. It is. Yeah. They are all using him as to essentially push their agendas forward. And the problem is, like, by the time Paul drinks the water, he realized that, but he only really goes after Lady Jessica about the way that she manipulated him. He doesn't really go after Stilgar as much or anybody else. And that also is another thing of like, wow, you just blame your mother, but don't blame anybody else that manipulated here. I guess you really don't see everything here, huh, buddy?
Yeah.
Picking and choosing.
I mean, clearly, I'm just like such a mark for Lady Macbeth type characters. So anything Jessica does, no matter how evil she was becoming, I just wanted more.
It was just anytime Rebecca Ferguson goes off screen, you're like,
where's the movie?
And she's gone. There's a stretch where she's gone for quite a bit of it.
Long time.
Like, I need her back.
There is a movie where Rebecca Ferguson, Léa Seydoux, and Austin Butler are in a movie, just the three of them together, and it is the sexiest, best movie of my life. And it could be directed by anybody, even Villeneuve. I don't care, and it would rock the house. This movie really decides, no, thank you. I'm gonna gift those people on the side, because like one of the funniest moments in this movie to me, and I did chuckle a little bit because I was a little frustrated, was like the idea of Paul can't go to the South, because if he goes to the South, we all know that he's going to end up being this guy. So everyone's like, well, it's getting bad down here in the North, dude. We got to go to the South. And he's like, I can't go. You don't know what it's like. I got to go to the South. And then where does he go? He ends up going to the South like 5 seconds later. And he's like, I'll go on my own path.
Well, that's the thing. It's
like you don't have to go on your own path.
It's presented as this huge conflict, but it's like, well, the movie has to keep going. So
the movie's made up its mind.
We're just going to do it.
Yeah, but
that's
again,
that like disjointed storytelling.
Exactly. It's like you're not.
I like this movie. By the way,
I like it. I like. I don't.
I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot more than the first one.
I don't hate it. Like I gave it 3.5 out of 5, but there was a lot of
everybody just go watch. Like
there's a lot of nits to pick.
Go watch Lawrence of Arabia, please.
Yeah.
I'm also like, I am happy that people are having an emotional response to it. I wish I could have it. Yeah. I wish I could. I really do.
I want to see it again. I want to see it. I do want to see it again. I want to see it in IMAX.
Sophia, what was the last movie that made you that had you like that, where you were just like shaken out of the theater, just like really affected?
I think that we saw it together, Sophia.
Zone of Interest.
I was gonna say when we were
my shoe broke and I couldn't eat. Yeah.
Weirdly, I
remember my shoe. Yeah, my shoe truly fell apart.
And she's like shaking and her shoes like broken. I'm like, I'm gonna have this Euro wrap before we head over to
and then I was
all the
sitting across from
Sophia's shoe broke, and she was like, wow, I'm really in the mindset of Zone of Interest. I get it.
And I just started eating your fries.
Yeah,
I would say like that.
Well, they gave me a lot of fries at that place. They did.
That was one. Killers of the Flower Moon. That was one.
Yeah.
And then like
that ending.
I mean, rep screenings. Matter of Life and Death. A different kind of shaken.
When we saw
don't talk about it.
Yeah, we can't.
It just like and the Red Shoes. Seeing both of those, like the way that those end. You just feel everything.
What's your favorite Archers?
Red Shoes.
I'm a Matter of Life and Death boy.
It's my second.
I'm a Red Shoes gay.
I think I'm Matter of Life and Death.
Are you Black Narcissus?
I think I'm Black Narcissus too, and then Red Shoes.
I do like that.
Talk
about filmmakers who can design and convey emotion.
Damn right. Damn right. And inventive. Innovative.
There aren't many like them.
No, they're not. God, they were great. They would have done a great job with Dune. Can you imagine the map paintings with that? Holy shit!
That's cool.
Yeah, cool. That would have been awesome.
We used to make movies.
We used to make cinema, baby.
We did, but I will say one of the things I did like about this movie in the ending, I liked the melodrama of it, and it reminded me of the like. I kept thinking of like those 50s like sword and sandals epics that MGM used to put out, like those sorts of like big kind of like cheesy melodramatic movies where the characters, like, there are battle sequences, but a lot of the times the characters are just, they have silly names and they wear robes and they just have these very dramatic conversations, and it did get into a little of that for me, and I really loved that. I just wanted more of that.
Jay,
I wanted more of that Weiler flavor to it.
Yeah. Jay, you know what this movie's cardinal sin was?
What's that?
We didn't get a good line from Walken.
No, I mean,
we didn't get
underused.
Yeah.
Walken, I don't know.
I'm the emperor.
I'll tell you one thing that does absolutely rock.
What?
The canal of dehydrated dead bodies.
That was cool.
That
I did
rocks.
like that. That was great.
That is awesome.
Paul Atreides, welcome to Arrakis.
The way they dehydrate.
That was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is
I love that.
Suck the water right out of their bodies. It's really good shit.
That was like some of the stuff I was excited
cool
to
stuff.
see too. I was like, oh, I love that.
But that's like in the first like 20 minutes of the movie.
But like for me, part one had none of that.
I get that.
Like it didn't have that.
Listen, you're not having to defend or
part one had the advantage of
being
I think
new.
All of that cool design being seen for the first time.
Yes.
And Caladan was so pretty in that.
Yeah. Oh, Caladan was beautiful.
I would love to live there.
I would love to live there.
Have you read Dune Messiah, Sophia?
I have not. And honestly, I don't know if I will.
Well, you got some time. You got some time. It's a smaller book.
So many books. I have so many books I want to read though. Like my pile of books is too much.
Calvin and Hobbes. I'm trying to read Hamnet before Kaluuya makes the film.
That's Hamnet.
Big on
Vineland.
Vineland. We got to read Vineland. That's big.
And that probably will take me as much time as Dune did.
Yeah, because it's
a lot of going back 3 pages and being like, I have not absorbed anything.
Yeah.
I'm kind of feeling we're going to get like Magnolia vibes from this.
Oh. I'm finally on Magnolia's wavelength after I saw it in theaters last time.
It's a great movie.
It's great.
A great movie.
Yeah, I turned around on Magnolia.
Mm-hmm.
No walking.
I loved it. Then
I just can't get over that.
Mixed on it, and now I love it again.
Me too.
Yeah,
well, that's a good feeling.
Jay.
Yes.
Before we get out of here.
Oh my God, are we talking about like prospective Oscar stuff? Is that what we're gonna do?
We're gonna test your future award season knowledge.
Wow.
Based off the film that we just reviewed in a segment we like to call It's an Honor to Possibly Get Nominated.
Wow. First.
You must be Anya Taylor-Joy here, Jay, and predict or potentially suggest what Oscars that Dune Part 2 should get nominated for.
All right. So should and will are very different things.
Let's do will
also,
first.
I don't know. Yeah, let's do will.
We can do this as a group. Will.
Okay.
Yeah, a picture.
Probably.
Will get nominated.
Yeah.
Cinematography, production design, costumes, makeup. I mean, probably editing just by default, I would guess.
Yeah. I think you're
adapted screenplay.
The first one did.
Direction.
Oh, direction.
That's curious.
That's the curious one.
I think it'll get in for direction.
Okay.
The thing about this year is it's just looking.
It looks
thin.
bleak.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And there's not that big event.
I don't think I see it getting an acting though.
The problem is it has to carry from
Butler should.
It has to carry from March to March. That's the only and something else could come. We don't know what that movie could be. So I mean if
McQueen save us.
And I'm going to make Sophia really nervous. If Paul Thomas Anderson delivers that movie on time, it will be a late December release for sure. his Vineland movie, but he's still shooting the hell out of it. I do not think that movie's coming out. You have to think of it from the standpoint of it's Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers has this. They have the Godzilla.
Oh my God, it's going to be a tax write-off.
Yeah, it's going to be a tax write-off for sure.
They're never going to release it.
They have Furiosa coming out.
My thing is, I need the Paul Thomas Anderson movie to be in a different awards and release cycle than the Taylor Swift feature film.
When the hell are we getting that Bong Joon-ho movie? I
think Travis Kelce is going to be in the Taylor Swift movie.
Travis Kelce should be in Dune.
He should be. This is like one of the Harkonnen meatheads. Like,
yeah,
just like, I'll protect you. And just
he could be in the Dave Bautista.
No, actually, I want Jason Kelce in Dune more than
visual effects.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, yeah. Sound.
Sound.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to get like
all the text.
13 Oscar nominations.
Well, no.
I mean, not that many. 10.
No,
without
because
acting.
Without acting.
Yeah.
I mean, 10. It could get Butler.
10.
It could get Butler.
I don't think it'll get Butler, but it'll get 10.
I don't know.
No,
I do wonder about director.
I'm saying no acting, and I think it will get director.
Yeah.
What should it get nominated for?
I mean, I don't know. At the moment, the only other 2024 movie I've seen is Beekeeper, so I'd give it Best Picture.
I would nominate it for production design and costumes and makeup, and I would nominate Butler at this point. I would keep him in a 10 because I think he's incredible. I would also, once again, like I thought in the first film, I think Rebecca Ferguson, once again, should be considered for supporting actress because those two, when they were on screen, delivered fucking great performances despite the writing. I do not think the writing for this one should be nominated.
I would give her a J award for being
the most important person.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Did you see what she wore to the New York premiere?
I did, and I was like, Yamaha.
The like thigh-high leather boots.
Yes, it was
Sophia.
You can't do this. This is a PG show, and you're gonna get Jay all riled up. You said that this was Chalamet's best performance, Jay?
I would argue probably my favorite of his performances, or at least the most impressed I've ever been by him.
Okay.
And I think that partly has to do with surprise.
With where I think the performance ranks for him?
Yeah.
Pretty high, like top 3, I would say.
What would the 3 be for you?
Don't Look Up.
Don't Look Up. Beautiful Boy.
Oh, Jesus.
No, I mean, I do like him a lot in Call Me by Your Name. I love him in Little Women.
He's fantastic in Little Women.
I love him as Laurie. But yeah, maybe 2. Maybe right after Call Me by Your Name.
It'd be 3 for me.
Yeah.
Though I do love him in The King.
Oh my God, The King. I forgot about that movie. But as far as like
I like him in Bones and All too.
Pattinson.
Oh, I like him in that too.
Yeah. Pattinson dominates in that movie.
Talk about someone who should be in Dune.
He could have been a good Fade Rotha too.
He's weird.
Yeah.
He would have been a. Could you imagine if it was
Fade Rotha?
If he was Paul,
definitive Fade Rotha. Like
if he was Paul,
no casting changes for.
Imagine the tall boys as Paul. Like Paul is Robert Pattinson and Fade Rotha is Austin Butler.
That's a lot.
Sophia would probably give this 5 stars automatically.
God, I saw Tenet. Robert Pattinson. Just what a versatile actor. Just
one of our great actors.
He is so charming in that movie.
There's a moment where he becomes, I mean, he's always been a very important person
to Rob?
Me. Rob, when he shakes the sugar packet.
Oh,
I don't know why, but it just does it for me.
I just when he just walks in there.
Elizabeth
and
Debicki's
he's sweaty,
so tall,
and they use her tallness as like to stop the car.
Kenneth Branagh goes flopping off of that boat.
Oh yeah,
so good.
Bell flop off the
bell flop.
Tenet. What a
he's really good in that movie. I like
what a picture.
We should do a solo Tenet episode. I don't want to do all the Nolans.
Why?
I feel like they're pretty well covered.
Nah, we'll do Nolan. Next time he has a movie come out, we'll do Nolan.
All right. What's his next movie going to be?
Can I do Oppenheimer?
So you're going to go back to Batman?
Sophia's already calling dibs on this episode of what she's going to do. as interesting as it is to think about what Villeneuve will do next, it is honestly very interesting to see what Nolan will do next, as we are on the
because he can
precipice
do
of him.
literally whatever.
He could fucking do anything he
wants.
wants. He could literally do what Cameron did in Avatar. I don't think he would, but like he could do that kind of level of a deal, or he could get $1 billion to make 4 movies in a franchise if you want. He could make Tenet 2 for all we give a shit, and they would make it easily. No questions asked. Too. Yeah. I mean,
do you think they actually would greenlight Tenet 2?
Absolutely.
That might be the one thing he can't make.
Tenet 2. Like all the fans,
love all of the weird rules of Tenet, like all of the palindromes and the
square. That's why the weird rules of Tenet would actually fit with Nolan with the weird rules of this universe with Dune.
I still think Nolan is too square to make Dune, but you know
he loves Star Wars.
I think the Wachowskis' Dune would have been
that would have been really good.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
Yeah,
we're getting another Wachowski movie. But it's like a rom-com.
It's Lily, right? Or no, it's Lana. It's one of them.
I can't remember.
It's one of them. I'm looking forward to it. I love their movies. I remember when Matrix Resurrections came out,
and it just absolutely blew the doors off.
Yeah, it was the better blockbuster than Dune Part 1 that year.
Yeah, I'm glad I got to see that one in the theater.
Yeah, me too. God, those movies are so good. Yeah. You gotta watch the sequels, Sophia. They're really great.
I know.
Not the third one. Skip that.
The third one's great.
Stonky.
They're all great. Matrix rules. They smell wonderful. Anyway, Dune Part 2. You think we did a good enough job, guys? Think we covered this?
I
feel like we're gonna come off like assholes.
I'm excited for all the 1-star reviews coming to this podcast.
Listen, I think there's gonna probably be a ton. I just say this: we all gave this 3.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
I might be bringing that down.
Okay, he might go to 3. But
I do want to see it again though. Which is
I want to see it again as well.
The first part.
Yeah, which still says something. Even a movie that we nitpick, I think it's because it's a movie that we.
You know what? I'm
keeping
it at 3.5. There are some moments where it's like, this is what movies are all about, baby.
Yeah, it's good. It just is. I have a lot of exactly. It is a very disappointing movie for me, and it has a lot of nitpicks for them not to be great. And I honestly, I expect great from this director and this. No, I do.
I just wanted to feel more, man. I just wanted to feel more. I wanted to think more.
Yeah. Maybe that's why I liked it, because I went in with
no expectations,
low expectations or no expectations for myself, because I usually don't expect to emotionally connect to a Villeneuve movie.
I'm not.
So when I do a little bit, I feel
I was a little bit
accomplished something.
I was a little bit lesser though, because of we doing the series, Sophia. And when we did the series, I was like,
we both kind of slid.
We both kind of came out of here and we're like, God damn it. Maybe, this, it was supposed to.
He's very impressive, but
yeah. But then, I think I'm sorry to say this, but like I see someone like Nolan.
He's a lot of,
and other directors
sizzle and not necessarily a lot of steak.
Like somebody like Peele and other directors too, that just are able to just.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfair to compare anybody to like.
It is,
some
but
of the best directors working. He's not one of the best directors working, in my opinion.
Yeah, but everybody of their era gets compared to their peers and how the trajectory of their careers are.
Well, all Villeneuve wants to do is make 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And Nolan kind of did that, and it was like, you know what, I'm going to stop doing that, and I'm just going to make my own movies.
No, but Nolan also has this like. Nolan's all about Kubrick, but he's also about like Michael Mann, who is like
Ridley,
thoughtful 12-year-old movies. Yeah. Like that's the magic of Michael Mann.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's funny is of the two, Denis worked more with Ridley, but yet Nolan admires Ridley's sense of scope, but he's a much better writer than Ridley Scott is. And
you could write the pitch for a Christopher Nolan movie in 2 sentences.
Yeah.
You can't do that with Denis Villeneuve movies.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
And
what if backwards?
Yeah. And
that's the pitch for Tenet.
And
what if car go backwards?
But I'll also say this: like, you put Denis Villeneuve up on the screen, it's not making $1 billion. You put Christopher Nolan up on a screen, it can make $1 billion.
Yeah, well, this movie might make $1 billion. So,
but it's also because it's a sequel. It's not because it's of Denis Villeneuve. It's because it's been the first movie is in the zeitgeist.
Christopher Nolan is the most powerful director in the world.
Yeah,
correct. Denis Villeneuve is not the most powerful director in the world. He is extraordinarily successful and honestly beloved. People freaking love Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah, they do. Not enough to nominate him for best director for the first movie, but good enough, you know.
He'll get directed. He'll get. I'm calling my shot. He will get a best director nomination for Dune 2.
We'll see. But will he get a win?
I don't know. Who knows what's coming out for the rest of the year?
That's true. That's true.
Steve McQueen is. When is Blitz coming out?
God, I can't wait for that movie.
I'm excited for that. I mean,
him with Saoirse.
The new PTA movie to come out.
What about there's no Marvel movies this year, right?
No, the only Marvel movie is Deadpool and Wolverine. That's the only one.
Okay, Deadpool could.
Is that one with Aaron Taylor Johnson coming out?
Oh,
Kraven the Hunter.
Kraven the Hunter
from J.C. Chandor, director of.
That's Marvel. Yeah.
A Most Violent Year. No, that's Sony. That's kind of the
Jungle. Did he do Jungle Cruise?
Area.
No, he didn't do Jungle Cruise.
Oh, that was the other guy that The Rock works with all the time. The guy that The Rock works with all the time. That was the Black Adam guy.
Well, let me see here. Jungle Cruise.
Right, Jean Colette Serra, is that his name?
I mean, yes, that is.
He did. Yeah.
Yes, Jean Colette Serra. Yes, he did Unknown, Nonstop, Run All Night. He directed the 2005 House of Wax, Orphan, The Shallows.
Orphan. I knew he did Orphan.
Jungle
Orphan's
Cruise, fun. And Black Adam, and The Commuter. God, what
if an old lady? What if a little girl was an old lady? That's the pitch of Orphan. Good pitch.
Poor things.
All right. All right. Okay. So, Sophia Ciminello, can you tell everybody where you can find you and all your work on that note?
Yeah. No, I do want to say, I think I want to be clear. This is, for me, a significant improvement upon part one. I am excited to see it again, despite any grievances I aired about it.
I like how like they're holding our kids hostage as we're saying this, like release my family and I'll say I like Dune part 2.
I also think that the distinct like shifts in tone between part 1 and part 2 kind of work more than I expected them to. I didn't feel it as jarring as I expected. But you can find me on Twitter at Sophia_Sim, Letterboxd. Same handle without the underscore. You can find my podcast at Oscar Wilde Pod on Twitter and wherever you find podcasts. We'll be reviewing Dune Part 2 soon once I see it again. And you can find all my reviews and interviews from the season, all of that coverage at AwardsWatch.
Go read all of Sophia's coverage. It's fantastic coverage. She's the best. And go listen to Oscar Wilde too. Go subscribe to that. Yeah, it's a great show. They're doing a great job. They're going to finally stop having to talk about the Oscars, and then that's when they get into their really fun stuff. They do a lot of like different retrospective and anniversary.
Profoundly, how do you guys talk about this Oscar season?
Well, Jay,
wait
a minute, Jay, you're our finest awards pundit around. Like, what are you talking about?
I mean, I did just predict everything that will happen at the 2020.
But yeah,
Sophia, we gotta ask you this. What do you say? Is this year the 2024 Oscars or the 2023
Here we go.
Oscars?
Okay.
I go by movie year. So
that's my inclination.
It's the 2023 Oscars this year.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think you're wrong, but
I go by movie year.
I know, I get it. I don't think you guys are wrong.
I just find it interesting that there's not sort of a
there's not a consensus.
Yeah, there's no
this.
Consensus.
Yeah.
For the site purposes, it's it's like I told Jay. It's kind of like, I like how we're talking about a bit.
That's why I just do it by the
I like how Jay's
the ceremony.
Yeah, Jay's talking about like a bit that we're gonna like have over like the next month of episodes.
Which one is this? Is this like 78 or something? Where are we at?
78? No, we're in the 90s.
Dude, this is gonna be 90.
Oh yeah, the first one was in like 29 or something.
96th.
Yeah, this is like this coming up is going to be 96. Yeah, buddy.
I mean, that's what I meant. That's what I meant to say.
That's what you meant to say. Come on. And we all make
100 will be a big deal.
That'll be
sick.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a big deal, and we'll get like Kelly Slater back out there to introduce all the best sound people or whatever.
I forgot about
they're gonna do something really stupid during the 100th, and it's gonna be the dumbest ceremony of all time. But yeah, go listen to that. I can't wait to hear you guys talk about non-Oscar stuff, because that's when you guys do like retrospective or director dives.
Yeah, we're gonna do the Godfather Part 2 in Chinatown next season. We'll have a couple movie drafts. I'm winning our award season fantasy draft because I picked Nolan and director, so that's
hell yeah,
benefiting me.
Smart move. J-Dog.
Yes.
Where can we find you in all your work, buddy?
Oh man, Letterboxd, J Ledbetter, Twitter at Mr. J Ledbetter. Any writing or any other garbage I do is on AwardsWatch. How about a movie recommendation of the week? Jay's Trash 2024 continues.
Okay.
The Steven Seagal vehicle, Out for Justice. Good movie, nasty movie, violent movie. He blows a guy's leg off with a shotgun. And Seagal, never a guy I've really enjoyed. And he does just inherently seem like just a real piece of work. But I'll tell you what, he's got the goods in this one. Out for Justice. Check it out.
All right. Out for Justice. Sophia,
really gnarly movie.
Sophia, you adding it to the list?
I have a movie recommendation. I can't say I'm adding that to the list, but I rewatched. I can't believe I'm recommending this, but I rewatched $1 Million Baby for the first time since oh my God, years ago, maybe since that Oscar year.
Yeah, and that one was like at the 81st Oscars.
I'm going to actually check and see if that's correct.
No, it's not. It was before that. 76th.
I was pretty floored by it.
It's good. It
hit me hard. Yeah, it's really good. And Clint Eastwood is great in it as an actor, which I was surprised by. I don't know why.
Holy shit.
Good Morgan Freeman voiceover.
Jay, you were one off. It was the 77th Oscars.
Dang it. I always confuse those two.
76 was Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, or Ryan McQuade 77. You can find all my work at awardswatch.com, where you can find my review of Dune Part 2, which I'm very proud of the title of Dune.
I believe it was Dune Part 2 is an absolute piece of garbage. Was that
no? It was a Spice Girls reference, which was wonderful, and made everybody proud. Sophia kindly edited my review of that, and when I added that in, she said this is the funniest thing that I've ever come up with in terms of titles.
We needed Spice Girls. Yeah, really.
Needed something to spice things up. That's what we needed.
It's a spice world. We're just living in it. Exactly, buddy.
Over on awardswatch.com is where you can sign up for the newsletter. Go to iTunes and Spotify. 5-star reviews, please. Please, for the love of God, 5-star reviews after this fucking episode. I can tell you that. Movie recommendation for me.
Maybe Sophia wasn't so negative. Good grief.
I saw a movie for the first time.
Tried.
I pulled it off the old shelf and dusted off the Criterion. Jay and I have been making a deal that we're going to watch more of our Criterions this year. And I watched
I watched the Steven Seagal film.
Exactly.
Justice.
There you go. And I watched one, and it's a more recent one, but I hadn't seen it. And it's Love and Basketball, Gina Prince Bythewood's movie.
Oh yeah.
You ever seen that, Jay?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good movie.
It's good.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I really liked it.
You know what? I'd go so far as to say it's probably even better than Out for Justice.
I think so. It's funny that Sophia and I actually mentioned sports movies. That's $1 Million Baby, great movie, great Best Picture winner, and Gina Prince Bythewood. Maybe somebody we talk about on a series one day, Jay. Gina Prince Bythewood. She's got some really interesting films.
What was that Netflix movie?
What is it? The Old Guard.
Yeah, that was a thing.
Is that the thing? Yeah, is that right?
That was the thing.
The Woman King.
Yeah.
Beyond the Lights. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff we could talk about with her.
There you go.
Well, this is releasing on the weekend, so next episode will be the main show that's releasing on Monday, I believe. That's going to talk about
the main show.
Our final Oscar predictions episode, and then you'll be listening back next week to some more William Friedkin talk. I believe that's when we're going to talk Bug. It's Bug, I think.
That's
Bug.
What it is. Bug.
Yeah, because yesterday's episode was
Sophia. You seen Bug?
Seen Bug?
I have not seen Bug.
Seen The Hunted?
No, my Friedkin blind spots. There are many.
Sophia, you got to watch The Hunted. Right, Jay? She's got to watch The Hunted.
It sounds like it's about to be a Friedkin weekend, baby.
Yeah.
She's about to have her some fun.
Stop. Oh my God.
Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you all next time.